Hey, what's up? I hope you're doing well today. Today I'm recording a live coding project kind of out of time just due to some schedule things on my end. So I thought we might build out a real life example from a real life designer. So I'm not doing this in collaboration with Maddie Beard, but I do like her design work and I've really benefited a lot from her YouTube channel. So if you haven't checked her out before, I'll make sure to point that out your way. But let me go ahead and transition here and just kind of show you what we're going to be working on today. So I found this on her Figma, but basically it's a little project template for like showing your web dev stuff, or in her case, her design, like who did what on a project that she's posting on her site. So it's a simple design, but I figure we'll stick with the simple basics of HTML and CSS and just kind of do this how I would do it if I was building this card out myself. So we've got several things to pay attention to, but before I do that, let me go ahead and show you Maddie, if you're not familiar with her, Maddie Beard on YouTube. And she also does stuff for the Flex YouTube channel as well. FLUX, I think, is how you spell that, but I think it's just Flux. But I mostly watch her on my personal account, but you can see here, she's just got a ton of stuff and super helpful designer. And over here, this is her Figma, and I just grabbed this example right here, this work catalog example. All right, so let's go ahead and kind of get started with what we need to think about first, and then we'll kind of go from there. So let me come back over here to the Figma, and let's just start to make a list of perhaps the stuff that we think we'll need. So I'm going to go ahead and just add a frame here, and I guess I should make this an auto layout, and we'll just add some text here, and I guess let me come over here and like beef this up a good bit, something like that. Okay, so we're going to think about a couple things. Let's think about fonts. Let's think about colors. Let's think about rounding stuff. How about shadows? Anything else? Spacing as well. So what I want to do is just kind of get a sense of what I need to template out in my CSS. And that way, when we get around to that, we can go a lot quicker once we actually get that all set up. So on a little project like this, the payout is not going to be great because we're going to do a lot of setup, and then it'll take like 3 seconds to actually get this thing set. But since we're kind of treating this as beginner design project, design to code project, I want to kind of take it from the most basics, even if it won't be super helpful in a small project like this. So let's think through the fonts. As I come over here, you can see that this is Enter Bold 60. So what I might do is just come down here, and underneath each of these, let's maybe back this off a touch. All right, that way I can actually see what's going on here. So we know we've got a 60 bold. So I'm just kind of cataloging the sizes of these things. And this is 73 on the line height. So we'll go 73 line height. And by the way, like whenever I do live codes like this, I literally am just doing it straight. First time I've done it, first time I've thought through it, because that's the benefit for me, is to be able to do it live and kind of see what I do and don't know. And hopefully it's a benefit to you that way as well. All right, so if I come over here, I've also got to enter regular 30 with 36. So this is 30 reg with 36. And what else do I got? I've got a bold, a semi-bold 22, 27, okay? 22, semi-bold 27, if I remember that all correctly. Yep, 27. Okay, same thing here. 27 regular. So we've also got a reg. I'm guessing this is the same. This is the same. This is the same. And then I'm guessing the only difference here is just that it, yeah. Okay. So those are our 4 different font styles in this. And that's, again, important to note because what I'm trying to do is just capture everything I need to set up in my CSS file. So let's also think about colors. And what I'm going to do is get rid of, come on, all this stuff. And probably the easiest thing to do in a design document like this is just to select all this. In Figma, it will show you all the different colors you've selected. So it looks like she's just got 4, or just these 3. So looks like we've got a pure black, a pure white, and this color, whatever that is. All right, let's think about rounding. I think the only thing I've got here is just this, right? I think so. 20. Taking the time to set this up might seem like a waste, but I think you'll see, especially the bigger the project is, just taking a little bit of time ahead of time dramatically improves the end result. So let's also grab this drop shadow. In fact, I can just inspect this probably. So it looks like I've got, where am I at? Down here. Okay. Let's grab all of this. And we'll do the same thing here. So in this case, I'll actually grab the actual values here. So this is black basically with a 1/10 of opacity. That's where we're at. It's down 2 pixels, 25 pixels of blur. Okay, finally and lastly, as far as I can see, just from an initial look, it looks like the last thing we need to figure out is our spacing between items. So in Figma, you can hold down the, what is it? The option key. So here I've got 40 all the way around. Let's see what I've got here, 40. So if you hold this down, it basically shows you all the gaps between stuff. So I know I've got, come on, help me out, 40 pixels here. What else do we have? 20 between those. 20 pixels. You don't have to like quadruple click. I think it's like command click or something, gets you straight to something, but I never remember those. So let's see what we got here. 35 between those lines. 35, so let's drop that in here as well. 35 pixels. Let's see, what are, so we got 5 there. Let me maybe grab a few at the same time. So that's, I'm going to call that 35 between those as well. 35-ish. Now these, we've got 10 between those. So 5 and 10. 36 is close enough to 35. We're going to be good there. Anything else? I don't think so. Okay, so we're going to go inside here. We've got 10 and we've got 5 pixels. All right, so we've got those spacings, this box shadow, this rounding, these colors, and that font. And all this is enter. Okay, so with that said, let's go ahead and jump over. And I'm going to, in my terminal here, let's just do a new, in this case, I think I'm going to do, I should probably just stick with basic HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, I suppose. But I guess you'd be loading this from some kind of like backend. Maybe we can do that in local storage. Okay, I want to keep this simple because it is such a simple design. So let's go ahead and let's just take a new thing. We're going to call this like portfolio card. Okay, and take is just a alias in ZSH or OmyZSH for creating and moving into a directory. Now inside here, let's go ahead and touch an index.html and style CSS. That's great. And then I'm going to go ahead and open this up in my code editor. Okay, so I went ahead and just clicked quickly to opening this in VS Code, but I just opened it in VS Code and now we can get started. I'm going to go ahead and click over here. And if we click go live, I should be able to come over here to port 5500. And right now nothing is there, but if I do this now, I think something will be there. Yeah, and if I come over here and add something there. Okay, so we're set up and ready to go. And I just templated this out with a bang and enter. And that's a Emmet extension that comes pre-installed in VS Code, but you can install it in pretty much any code editor. So we'll call this portfolio card. Okay, now let's set up the content itself. And right now I'm just going to hard code everything. I will go ahead and grab that pizza image. Let me drag that in here and I'll be right back with you. Okay, so I grabbed that and we're set to go. Let me go ahead and jump back over to the Figma file. And I've got a clipboard manager called Pastebot where I can copy things and then paste them in the same order I copied them. So I'm going to go ahead and grab all this text, kind of one after the other. And then we might eventually create some kind of JSON file or something that you can load from. But for now, we're just going to grab all these one after the other. Okay, so with that said, let's think through just briefly before we jump over to the code what this should look like. So these will probably be articles as far as the HTML tag itself, the HTML tag. I'm assuming this would be like in a section, and then you'd have these as articles. So this would probably be an H3, I would guess, if you had a section header. So probably H3s. Then a paragraph tag. These can be grouped together since they're 20 apart. This is kind of a space of that 35. So we've got one group, 2 groups, 3 group, or we could stack this too. anyhow, inside this bottom section, we've got one group. This will be its own thing. And then all of these will be a third group. So I think that's how I'm going to set this up. So we'll have 3 groups in that bottom section. All right, so with that said, let's say we have a section and we would give this like an ARIA label and call this something like portfolio projects or something. Okay, and then inside here, we'd probably have an H2 that said something like, check out my work. And then below here is where we'd have all these cards listed out. So for now, we're just going to have this as an article tag. Let me close this sidebar. And here's where I'd have the image. So I'll go ahead and drag that in here. So we'll say pizza. And then below here, we'll need to do some styling, obviously, eventually. But below here is where we'll have that H3 role. And you might remember I said I was going to wrap that in a div. So let's go ahead and do that, or in a section. Not the section tag, the actual div, but just grouped together. Then I'll have a paragraph here with make ordering pizza more intuitive. Below here is where we're going to have the H. Yeah, let's just do the HR thing. HR. Okay, so this is that horizontal rule. And then next we'll have another div, and eventually we'll get around to kind of how we want to style these. This will also be each of these sections here. If I were to come back over here, this is going to be grouped together as well. So there'll be multiple groups inside of here. Probably too, if I was loading this from some kind of database, like this would not be one long string. This would be like the designer is, and then you would list off who the designer is. The project manager is, and then I would list off who that is. So these will probably also be like set off as probably flex children as well. So all of this right here will be stacked on top of each other. So I'd make that a grid. These would be groups like this of flex items, and they're all going to be inside of a flex parent as well. So eventually let's come over here, and maybe just to remember what that is supposed to look like, I'm going to have like a grid, and I'll do a grid small. I think that'll work. Or grid extra small, how about that? And I'll explain what we're going to do there in a second. This will be a paragraph with a strong tag that will have roles inside of it, like that. And what I did there was emit, which is, again, what I already showed you how to expand stuff. If you're not familiar with that, I've done a video on my channel before explaining how to kind of get quicker with HTML that way. Obviously, if you're using React or some kind of templating language, usually you don't have to type out all that, so maybe you don't need that. Okay, next I'm going to have here, this is going to be flex, and we'll call this flex small because they're 10 apart. And then individually here is where we're going to have the designer, whoever, etc., etc. So for right now, I'm just going to paste that in because we're going to need to come back and add this. Maybe I should do this now. So what I'm going to do is have each of these things be essentially a paragraph. Yeah, okay, so they're all the same. So we're going to say paragraph there. And I'm just using an extension abbreviation basically that tells me to wrap this in a paragraph or whatever I type. And again, that comes in VS Code. I think it's just like if you hit Command-Shift-P, it's wrap with abbreviation. I've just added a short key so I don't have to keep typing that. Now these right here we will add after the fact. So let me go ahead and just move this down, and I'll show you what we'll do there later. So again, I'm going to wrap this with a paragraph tag, wrap this with the paragraph tag. We'll jump down this way, wrap this with the paragraph tag, and finally one more time. Okay, so these right here we will save for later. Let's see, I also though want to wrap each of these sections here with a flex, flex extra small, I think. Okay. Now these are little utility classes we're going to set up in our CSS that will basically give us a grid with this kind of spacing, a flex with this kind of spacing, etc., etc. So we'll use that all throughout. I'll leave these here just so I don't forget about them. Okay, so we're basically going to use this exact same structure for all the rest of this stuff, except this is, I guess for this we will. The timeline is just going to be, well, no, I think we do the same thing. So yeah, let's go ahead and copy this down, and we'll do the same thing here. And one more time. Okay, so back up this way for the roles. This would be timeline. The links here would be something like this. And let me go ahead and close this down. And then I'd have launched. And just for consistency's sake, oops, this is supposed to be right here. For consistency's sake, I will probably leave it as a flex child. Flex extra small, it's not going to hurt anything, but there will only be one paragraph tag here. And that way, if you were to create this as like a little looping component, you wouldn't have to create different things. As long as we style it the right way, we should be set and ready to go. Okay, same thing here, except we don't need that. We don't need that. Okay, and then finally down this way, let's pull back up our clipboard, and we've got links. And these we will set off Figma Designs. This will link to something, or at least it would in a real project. So we probably also want to have that. And then we'll leave those ticks just so we can remember those and how those should be laid out. And yeah, let's go ahead and kill all the rest of this. And then I'll just copy this down several more times. Let's see, like that. And then we'll paste these in. Okay, so that's all set and ready to go now. And so we've got all the actual content up. Let's next think about fonts. So fonts.google.com. For now, I'm just going to use a Google font. Enter. Look at that. I've got it ready already. So I know we had regular bold. Didn't we have a semi-bold as well? So let's see. Maybe I have to go over here. Enter. So semi-bold as well. I think that was all I had. Is that right? Regular, bold, and semi-bold. Okay, so what we're going to do is copy both of these things. Here I'm going to add this right here. And then eventually we will add this to our CSS file. Speaking of our CSS file, let's go ahead and link that up as well. So if I do link :CSS, it should give me style.css as the default, which is what I've got. So let's come over here. I'm going to paste this under my body. All right, so there we go. So it's actually pulling this in now and using what we want. Now let's go ahead and set a basic reset, and I'm going to set this on everything, on the after, and on the before. Not sure what that is. So let's say box sizing, border box. And I typically also like to do margin 0 and padding 0, just because I like to let the parents control the spacing, and it's easier if you reset everything to do that. All right, we also need a couple of basic things for the image. So let's set this to display a block and max width of 100%. What else? Let's really go out on a limb, and let's say, I was gonna say let's reset all the text values, like the sizing of every single text item, but maybe let's not go that crazy. This is a small little card, but usually I do like full resets and then set my own for every single font family and all that kind of stuff, font size. That way I don't accidentally leave like the H3 default for a browser in there. But for now, let's next set up our custom variables. So essentially what we're going to do is come over here, and I'm going to grab all of this and all of this and all of this and this and this. We're just going to use these. Now that we've got them set up, we're going to use these to set up different properties that we can access in our CSS. So we'll say like fonts, and let me for now just paste this in. This is obviously not going to do anything yet, but we'll also say, let's see, colors, same thing. We'll say rounding, same thing. Shadows, even though there's only one. And then finally, what was that last thing? Oh yeah, spacing. So spacing, do the same thing. Okay, so we've got all these set up. Let's go ahead and now declare how we kind of want these to look. So I'm going to have a font size property here. And obviously, if this was going to be fully responsive, you'd probably have to make this a little bit smaller just to make everything work properly, like on a phone screen size. Otherwise, that'd be pretty big at 22. But we're going to go ahead and set this as font size. It looks like the regular is 400. Yeah, so we'll set this to 22 pixels. And then we'll set 500. Actually, I usually like to skip, so we'll go 600 just so it's really clear. We'll do 30 pixels. And then font size 800 will be the 60 pixels. So essentially what we're doing here on all these is I'm setting up a default font size, and then we're next going to set up a font weight. So we'll do font weight, regular. This will be, what did this look like? 4, 6, and 7. Okay, so we'll do 400, semi, 6, and 7 will be bold. And then finally, the line height is consistent across all those. So what is 60 times 1.1? 2, 1.3, 1.25, 23, 22. All right, so 21, somewhere around there. So we'll just do 1.2 for the line height for all this because they all seemed consistent. 22 times 1.2. Yeah, so that's close enough. So we'll do a line height, but I'll go ahead and set this as a variable as well. So we'll do line height. We'll just do 400. Well, you can do this in a couple different ways. A lot of times I'll do 1.2 like that. That way I remember what it is. So 1.2 for all those. So maybe let's stick there. So now what we can do is use these all throughout our CSS. So let me go ahead and comment out all this stuff. Maybe we'll do this like this. That way we can actually see it in practice before we fill out the rest of this stuff. Okay, so we've got all that set. Now what I want to do is use these on my different types of fonts I want to use throughout. So we're going to have a couple different basic sizes. Even though I've got, if I jump back over to my HTML, I've got an H2 and I've got an H3. I don't like to rely on these for the actual content. So what I prefer to do is have like a class of H3 or a class of H2, and that way I can style the headers however I want them to look without having to rely on the semantic tag of H3. So I could come in here and say like, I don't know, H4 or something like that if I think this will be a little smaller. I don't have a full design system, so it's hard to know. So for now, I'm just going to set this as an H3, and same thing here. I will set this class as an H2. Okay, so if I come back over this way, I know I've got a few different basic font sizes, and we'll want to set up some kind of classes for these. Usually I would set up some utility classes, so we'll do like text utils. And inside here, we're going to have an H2, and we'll have an H3. And maybe what I should do, I think we're good there. So let's just set both the H2 and the H3 the same. Since I don't really have an H2 in the design anyhow, I'm just making that up. So we'll say font weight will be var font weight. And in this case, I want it to be bold for both of these. And then font, or line height, will be var line height 1.2. And in fact, this line height is going to go on everything on the body, so let's go ahead and do that as well. And then here I'm going to say font weight will be var font weight of regular. So that'll be the main body font. Line height is set. What else do I need? I think that's... I guess I need font size too. So font text size, font size. There we go. All right, var font size of 400 for my basic. What I want to do here though is bump this up to 800. And when I do that, you'll notice that this, expands because it's supposed to be whatever this is. So this is everything's 1.2. This is my 22 pixels everywhere. And I might just zoom out a touch because it's a little bit big to see off to the side here. But now you can see how those custom properties are changing. And if you ever need to change stuff, so a lot of times you'll get a design file and then the designer comes back and says, hey, by the way, I want everything changed and I want it to be 24 pixels. Well, now you change it in one place and it changes all throughout your entire site. So that's a really useful way of setting up stuff, just like you would set up any kind of templating in any kind of coding language or even in Figma. Setting up this template in CSS makes it really easy to adjust. Okay, next, let's go ahead and set these colors. And I'm going to go ahead and remove this right here. I guess like that. All right. I thought I could remove them all at once, but I guess not. So here what I'm going to do is name these some kind of neutral names, and that way as we use them, if we need to change them, it's not a huge deal. So I would probably say something like text for the first one, background for the second one, and then like maybe accent for the third. Okay, so for now, let's go ahead and set those as our defaults here. So I'm going to say background color. This will be my var of background. And then for just the color, which is the text, obviously, I'm going to change this to text. All right, and accent right now, the only thing I really have this on, the HR is going to have background color, of var accent. And if I were to change this just to make sure it's actually working properly to like red, you're going to see that I can't actually get anything here. So I do need to, let's see. I don't remember what's on here by default. So let's go ahead and look at this. See, there is a little red popping through, but there's other things in the way. So it looks like I've got border width and it's inset. So I'm going to set the border here to none. Okay, now it's basically hidden altogether. So I also don't want that, obviously. So let's set the height here. And here I do need to come back to the Figma. I'm guessing this is just a single pixel, 2 pixels. Okay, so we'll set 2 pixels here. And now we're set. Okay, so now it is actually working. So I can come back here and set this to my accent. And I think that's the only place it uses it in the design. Am I right there? Yeah, I think so. Okay, so let's jump back over this way. Now that we've got the basics set up, we do have some other font styles we're going to be using. So if I jump back over this way, this is like a subtitle. And then all the rest of these are either just bold or, yeah, I think, yeah. So it's just bold, underline here, obviously. But these are all the same font sizes. So I basically have 3 font sizes, which is what we declared up top. So I'll just set like a, maybe I would make this an H4, honestly, and set this font weight. Yeah, I probably would have that regular. So we'll do var font weight regular. And then font size, it would be var font size 600. So anything with an H4 class, so if I jump back over this way, and even though this thing is a paragraph here, I could give it the class of H4, and now it should take on that look. Okay, so all the rest of these are good. I just need to make sure that when this turns to bold here, that it doesn't take on my largest size. It just takes on the font weight of 700 or 600. So I need to actually change this here. So there's a couple different ways to do this. These would probably be inside of some kind of card. So this would have a class. Oops, not that. This down here would have a class of like card on it. So probably just to make sure I wasn't overwriting too much, I would do like card. That's fine. All right, so I'd have a card, and inside here I would say anything that's a strong tag. This should be a font weight of font weight 600. Well, that was less than desirable. Let's see. Font weight semi. That's what I want. So semi, there we go. Okay. So now this has my 600 rather than my 700. Okay, next thing I want to do is set up some utility classes. So these are text utils. Now we're going to do like spacing utils. And you might remember that we set up these grid extra small, flex extra small, all this kind of stuff. So let's go ahead and use these and just show you kind of what I was thinking. So if I come over here, we have like a flex small. Then what I would do is display a flex, and then gap would be var space. We don't have them yet. That's right. So let's come back up this way. And before we do rounding and shadows and all that, let's go ahead and get rid of these spacing ones. And what I'm going to do is come over here. And you can do this in a couple different ways, but I'll usually use space or something like that. Now, this would go anywhere from probably, you can do like medium, small, extra small. So maybe this would be medium, large, and extra large. So let's do that. And then this would be large. This would be medium. This would be small. And this would be extra small. So what I should be able to do then is come inside here and just say my gap is my small space small, like that. And now the cool thing is if you grab all this and hit Command Option or Command Shift sorry, Option Shift and the down arrow. You can copy it down a couple times. Then what I'll do is grab the first small like that, select it, hit Command D, that will select the next one. I can just change this to medium, grab this and change this to large, grab this and change this to extra large, and we forgot our extra small, so let's do that. And I'll grab all this and move it up top. Now, obviously, if you're using something like SAS, you can loop through a map and actually create all this live, but not a big deal here to do this for a few things. So what we're going to do is grab the same thing, except we're going to grab this, hit Command D, 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 and hit Grid. So now we've got grids and fluxes set up properly for us. And notice that all this is already changing, which is pretty cool. So these utility spaces now help us kind of pad things out as we need them. All right, next, let's think through the card itself. So this card class is going to have my rounding on it, so we can go ahead and set that up. It's also going to have that box shadow as well. And then we want to set some kind of default spacing between these. If I jump back over here, you're going to remember that that was that 40 pixels. So we're going to set that on that as well. So there's a couple different ways you could do this. Because we've got that utility class, I could come over here and say like grid probably extra large, I'm guessing, and it will space everything out the way we need it to. So that is one thing we could do. However, I think in this case, I would just set it on the card itself because that's kind of a unique individual component. So that's probably what I would do. So let's come over here to our card, and I want to set the thing to display of grid, gap of our space, extra large, and that should space everything out properly the way we need it to. So this should be 40 between here, 40 between, actually 35 is what I wanted here, right? So I might need to think through that bottom section a little bit. Okay, well, we'll think through that. So probably what I will do is have an internal div inside of here that spaces everything out by 35 instead. But even so, this image and this needs to be 40 apart, so we should be good there. Okay, next, let's go ahead and add some padding here. And this should be the same, right? So let's actually grab this right here and just copy it down. So now I've got padding around this as well. And maybe just to make sure that we've got space where we can actually see what's going on here, let's go ahead and add the same padding to the body. And that way when we set up our kind of background shadow on everything, we'll be able to see things properly. So I do want this same color on the card. And then I want to set a box shadow. And I'm going to set this to my var of shadow, which does not yet exist. But if I come back up this way, that's what we're going to create here. So all the way back up here, we can set this as a shadow, like that. And now it should add that shadow right there. Now, I probably would do this a little bit differently than they have, you know, in Figma, the export. So not a big deal, but I'll just leave it there. Okay, next I want to set up that border radius. So let's go ahead and do that. So we'll do border radius, var round medium. In this case, I don't have other things in the design system, but I'd probably set this up as some kind of medium rounding. So we'll say round medium. Should probably do a double dash just to signify that this is like a variation of this. What did I call this? Round medium down here. Probably the same thing on all these here. See, I didn't do this on any of the other things though, so maybe I shouldn't. Okay, forget that. Let's take this here and change this back. If I hit Command Shift L, it'll grab both of those. And now we've got this nice rounded corner. Now I've also got this here, and there's a couple different ways we can treat this. So right now I've got padding on the entire card. However, I may want to actually just limit that to the bottom section because this goes all the way to bleed the whole way. So maybe let's do that. So let's get rid of this. And since we already have to do some work on the bottom section, now we should be set. The other thing I want to do is make sure that my image has the same thing. So let's come back over here, and I would probably give this some kind of class of like card image like that. And let's come over here and grab our card image, say border radius. We need to be var round medium. What I'm going to want to do is set it on the top like that, and then the bottom like that. Okay, so we're going here, 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 and here. So round, round, 0, and 0. Okay, next, so I've got the card image. Everything else I'm actually going to wrap in its own little section down here. So let's see, let's go all the way down to the bottom, right up here. And I'm going to use my shortcut key to wrap all this again. We'll say like card content. Something like that. So this card content is where we'll do the padding and all that. So card content like this. We'll drop this padding in here. And that way we've got padding around this section. The only problem is I don't want it up top. So I probably need to actually go 0. Yeah, there we go. So this is for top, this is left and right, and this is bottom. Now you can also have all 4, but this works as well. So we'll just leave it there. Okay, so I think we're set there. Now I probably will also want some kind of like here, since we've already got these utility classes, let's just do grid extra large. Wait a second. My grid has a double dash. My other one doesn't. So the important thing is just to be consistent. So clearly this is not consistent. I've got classes like that, and I've got all these set up in another way. So let me go ahead and grab all of these, and we'll just make them all those double dashes. So Command-Shift-L, change those. Same thing here for these spaces. I'll grab this, Command-Shift-L, add that there. Do the same thing here. Grab this, Command-Shift-L, and add a double space there, just to be consistent with all my naming. This is why people like things like Tailwind, because you don't have to think about naming. And there's certainly a place for that, especially on a larger team. And but I don't think you can write good Tailwind without knowing good CSS. So this will hopefully apply to Tailwind devs too. So we'll do the same thing here, I guess, as well. And I might even speed this section up so you don't have to watch me rename all these things. All right, just one note, if you're doing this yourself, just make sure that you add or do Command-Shift-L when you're selecting these top ones. You'll notice when I do that, it selects both of these here, and that's what I would want. So you can set those up however you want, but that's just how I did it here. All right, so now those are all spaced out properly. If I pull this out, you can see we've got that wrapping properly. Now, we're going to want to have some kind of cap on this card. You can do that by the parent itself, but it probably makes sense to also have it on the card. So I might just do like max width here of fit content. So it will fit all of its content, but won't stretch any more than that. And then I will probably need to cap this in some way smaller than that, I guess. So probably by the image width. So if these are going to be 400 pixels wide, I can just cap it there. So if I know all of mine are going to be 400 pixels wide or no bigger than that, maybe I should do that. All right. So let's go ahead and pull this out. Let's see, what did I just do? Card content. Oh, it's 800 pixels wide. Okay. So make sure you get that right. So we cap it at 800, and obviously probably the parent would squeeze it down smaller than that, but they're more or less set. The other thing I might do just for kicks to kind of get this thing centralized is come over here and do display grid, and then like place content center maybe. That way at least moves it over. Okay, last thing is just to kind of set up how the actual card body itself works. Now, because we've got all these utility classes, it should be pretty easy to set this out now. So if I come over here, we're going to look at individual sections here. These right here, if I look here, these were what? 20 apart. So that's my medium. So that means I can come over here and inside here say class of grid medium, like that. And now we'll space those out properly. The other thing is this whole bottom content section. You might remember that its sections were all 35 apart, because remember this has some extra padding here, but it's actually 35 apart, which was my large. So that means I should be able to come in here under card content, and I could also add like a second class of grid, whatever. But in this case, I think since I've already got that declaration, let's go ahead and just do display grid and gap of var, what was that, space large, right, of the 35. All right, so now everything will be spaced out properly there. Next, this section down here, you might remember they're all 20 apart. So that's my medium again. So I should be able to come over here. That's this right here. Class would be grid medium. So a couple utility classes really do a whole lot of wonders for your CSS. You don't have to do nearly as much, and it also saves writing that CSS. So if I come over here, now I've just got these sections to kind of space out. Now I've already set these at extra small and small. The last thing I need to do though is for each of these sections, let's see, how does this work? It's just a comma there. So there's a couple things you could do. You can manually add these things right here in between everything, which is, you know, what we're already doing right now. But if you're looping through these, you probably wouldn't do it that way. You probably would have, like if it's the last of this type, add this. So if you're templating it out, that's probably what you would do. If you want to do this in CSS, you could do that as well. You would just have to, probably you could do this in a couple different ways. So if you're already manually writing it out like this, what I would probably do is on these flex smalls. Is this what I want? Yeah, probably on these flex smalls, on these first two, I'd say like data after or something like that. And I would actually add those like that. So then what this is going to do is we're going to use that in the CSS. So let's just pretend we're manually writing this out to kind of keep it as simple as possible. And I'm going to come over here and just say if there's anything with the data after, then what I want to do is set that to position a relative. Nope. I want to grab its after, and I want to say the content needs to be attr of data after. Let's see if this works. All right. So, oops. Data after. I want to grab the after. I think maybe you don't have to put this here. You just do like that. Yeah. Okay. So see how it's actually adding these here. So that's a nice way to handle this as well. You could also do that in your JavaScript if you want to. So see roles. I want it after Maddie Me. So actually you would want this here. Is that right? Yeah. And then also after the Jake there. But I don't want it at the end. So, you know, depending on how you're templating this out, obviously there are other ways to do this, but if I was going to use just CSS, that's what I would do. This attr function is super helpful, but it only works on after and before pseudo elements with their content, which is kind of frustrating, but I'm sure there are smart people who have reasons for not doing it that way. So the other thing I can do is, because I've just labeled it something generic like data after, is I can come right here, and on this I could say data after, and I can say I want this to be a comma, and now it will change it to a comma. Now the only bad thing here is I've got an actual space now, whereas I don't think I did in the design. So maybe I would change that up, you know, depending on, you know, in this case, I would probably just do a comma like that. But just to show you that you can actually use data attributes in super powerful ways. And I have one basically declaration in CSS that's doing all that work for me. So same thing down here. What we're going to do is get rid of all these things. 2, 3, 4. Get rid of all those. And I'll come here, hold down the option, click all of those, and do data afters, and now they're all there as well. So super helpful to get those templated out using essentially HTML and CSS. All right, last thing we need to do then is just style these links, I think, and then I think we're set and ready to go. So let me go ahead and just style the links, and we'll be off to the races. So I'm going to come over here to the card, and we're just going to say that the card, any links inside of these cards, any anchor links inside of these things need to be font. See, yeah, color of our text. All right, and then let's go ahead and do a couple other spiffy things. So like for now, if I come over here, I get this tabbing situation, which is subpar. I also have no hover effect at all. So let's add a couple things like that. So we'll say card A with a hover. In this case, I will set this to color var of accent. And that way, if you come over here and you kind of go over that, I don't love that. So let's not do that. Let's just change the opacity. How about that? So we'll say opacity is 0.8. So now if I come over here, maybe a little bit more extreme, 0.6. There you go. So now you can tell you're actually hovering. Other thing I would probably do is come in here and change the focus state, which is when you would tap on a mobile device or tab to it. And I would set the default outline to 2 pixels, solid and transparent. So this will make it invisible unless you're using some assistive technology, but technically I'm selecting that, I'm focusing on it, you can't see it. So if you ever do this, you have to make sure you add in some kind of focus state on tabbing. So focus visible is what that's called. And in this case, what I would do is set up a box shadow. So box shadow. And I like to do this in 2 stages. So I'm going to take 0 left, 0 right, 0 up, 0 down, 0 blur, and then something like, let's do something like 3 pixels, solid, not solid, 3 pixels. And then I'll just go ahead and do var of, let's just do red, just so you can see what's going on. So if I do red, now when I tab to it, you can see how I get this kind of rounding, or that border effect. So what I want to do is actually add 2 box shadows. So if I grab all this and hit comma and do it again, I can say blue, and then basically move this outside of that. So by making it larger, it now is going to be kind of the background behind it. So if I come over here, again, you're going to see I have 3 pixels of red, and then outside of that, my 3 pixels of blue, or yeah, 2 extra pixels of blue. So now we just have to change these to the values we want. So this would probably be, I don't know, maybe I'd make this an accent, and this would be my background. And that way you get this nice effect as well. I might also just, for design, I don't know, aesthetics, change this to my round medium. And that way I've got at least like a little rounding thing going on. I don't know. That may not be important to you. I'm not sure I love it either. So maybe we'll change round small, and that way we can add one more utility up here. So we'll say round small, and this one will be like, I don't know, 5 pixels, something like that. That way it just has nice little baby round to it. Look at that. All right, so hopefully that was helpful for you. I know my face has covered up a lot of this, so let's kill that for a second just so you can kind of see what's going on. So this is what we've got. You can obviously change this up however you'd like, but I thought it'd be helpful to actually do the design from scratch. Now, because we didn't get a whole lot of information on what this should look like on mobile, I obviously don't know exactly the thought here. So right now it's trying to squash all of these things. So probably what I would do is, for now, just since we're not sure, is I would come in all these flexes here. Would I do that? Probably not. What I would probably do is set up one more utility class. We're going to call this flex wrap. Oops. Of flex wrap of wrap, like that. So the flex wrap class, I can then add on all these sections here. So I'm not going to let these wrap. Instead, I just want to wrap the actual lengths themselves like this. So I would come inside here and say flex wrap. Same thing. Let's see, right here, flex wrap, and then one more time right here. There we go. So now if I make this thing smaller, like this, you can see how it's actually wrapping but keeping the lines together, which I'm assuming would be what you would want, something like that. Now, obviously, there's some more styling stuff to do with this banner section and how the whole page would end up looking, but obviously we don't have those, so I'm just designing what we've been given, and hopefully that was helpful for you. So a very basic design, but I think thinking through things as a system dramatically improves your experience. Here I am back at you. So thinking through stuff as a system helps you kind of do the work once rather than like 10 or 15 times. And again, all I have to do if I want to change up some of these colors, for instance, is very quickly come into my, let's come over here. All right. All I have to do is come over here and just change these colors. So let's say I want the background to be red, and I want this to be, the text to be something nasty. If it'll let me, come on. Something like that. So if I save this and jump back over here, you can see how now everything is updated automatically. Or if I want to change the font family. So this might also be another thing to drag up here as well. Font sizes, any of those things would work just as fine. So let's go ahead and leave it like that. I'm going to add all this code to my GitHub. You're welcome to check it out. I hope this was helpful, especially if you're just starting with web design to development. That process can be kind of tricky, and I'm certainly no expert. If you see something that you're like, hey, why did you do this? Or maybe you're an experienced dev and for some reason you just wanted to watch this. Maybe you're like, hey, this wasn't a great way to do it. Let me know. I'm always happy to learn. That's why I have the channel in the first place, is to learn. Big thanks to Maddie for letting me steal this design and do it. She doesn't know I'm doing this, but I really appreciate her work, and I would encourage you to check her out. All right, thanks so much. I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Happy coding.